Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Home Service Hustle. I'm your host, Jonathan Bannister, and today I'm with Brian Burton. Brian is a third-generation plumber. He's a sales trainer. He is the founder and owner of Blue Collar Closer. He's also the podcast or co-host of Waste No Day. Thank you for being here, Brian.
Yeah, you bet. I don't know if I didn't have it in there, but also general manager of Benjamin Franklin Plumbing, yes. Phoenix, which is my pride and joy right now. Don't tell Nate I said that, but that's my baby.
So let's go back. You got a lot of interesting stuff here. You don't have your typical story. You're a high school dropout, former gang member, drug addict, and you earned your GED while in rehab at 32. So you definitely didn't start at 18 and jump straight into the trade. So let's just kind of talk a little bit about some of that backstory and what got you to where you are today.
Yeah, I actually started in the trades realistically like 13, working on occasion with uncles, and then did a little plumbing like in my grandma's basement. But dropped out of high school at, I want to say 16. I'm actually not 100% sure, but I believe it was 16, just due to the nature of being in a public school in Detroit. So, and then there was nothing that I was planning on doing that felt like I needed a high school diploma to accomplish, which was basically just to get out of the hood and into plumbing. So yeah, started doing that at 16 behind the counter of a plumbing shop, and then into new construction plumbing from there. And then into sewer and drain only, and then on into residential service. When I got into residential service, I felt like I really found where I was supposed to be, because like new construction, man, that was not for me. Like getting dropped off on a job site with a pickaxe, a shovel, and a bucket, and they just had a blueprint, taped up on the foundation wall, and they're like, need your sewer here, over there, run it over there, and then down here. And then, it's just wide open to the elements in Michigan. So it's either frozen or it's like mud soaked. And I mean, they're oftentimes by myself for like a half day. It was just, I was not meant for that. So when I found service and interacting with clients and team members all day, I thought that was for me. So
when did you, like, let's dive a little bit back into the backstory. Like what you got in at 13 working with uncles, and when did you get into the service side where you kind of found your home? And then like, where was the gap of the bad times that helped you grow as a person, obviously?
Yeah. So I was kind of in and out of the shop and new construction, and occasionally in these sewer and drain teams. But a little bit of service mixed in there. But in 2004, my wife got pregnant with our first child, who's 20 now. And we talked about moving out to Las Vegas where her parents were.
Okay.
And we went back and forth several times on it. And she's like, we're doing this, And I think she was like 7 months pregnant. And she finally just said, like, points down to her stomach. She's like, we're going out to Las Vegas. You're welcome to join us, right?
Yeah.
Which is getting me to finally move can feel like that sometimes. So we went out, and the reason was her dad would just like knock on the windows of plumbing trucks at the gas station and say like, yeah, how much did you make last year? And then he'd call my wife, his daughter, and say, these guys are telling me they're making 60, 70, 80,000 a year. And my last year in Michigan, I made 32,000 before tax. So obviously it sounded like a heck of an upgrade, So we went out there, and I had 3 companies in mind that I was going to go check out. And there were no like smartphones back in 2004, right? So I sat at my mother-in-law's little computer and map quested out, going from their townhouse to the first company, from there to the second company, from there to the third company, and then back to their townhouse. And I just printed out a 1-page document from MapQuest that was the directions, right? So the only thing I knew how to do There's no smartphone. I didn't have like the Garmin or TomTom, map wizards. It's just drive to those 3 spots and then back. And mind you, we spent every penny we had to move, which was not much. And I had to borrow gas money from my father-in-law to even drive to those 3 companies and back. So
right.
I drove to the first one, and I have no idea who it was or what team it was, but I met the owner, and he was like just salt of the earth plumber, like my uncles. And I'm like, I like this guy. And one day he offered me $20 an hour, or maybe 25 or something like that. Something where I just thought like, ooh, like I'm going to make like 50 grand a year with like barely any overtime. And I'm an overtime guy. If there's work to be done, I want it, So I was pretty pumped. And then I told him I'm going to go to another one, but I said, I'll probably be back. And he asked me which ones I was going to. And I told him about Yes Plumbing and Air Conditioning, which was Ken Goodrich's company. He's like, oh, you don't want to go there. They're going to teach you how to rip old ladies off. And I was like, what? Like I'd never heard of a selling type company, and I'm not that familiar with hyperbole, at 24 and where I'm from. And when he said that, he's like, oh yeah, man, they're just con artists of it. I'm like, wow. I'm like, well, how are they still in business if it's that well known? And he's like, I don't know. I just don't get it, And I was like, all right, well, hey, I told my wife I'm going to hit it. I didn't want to say I didn't know how to get back, but I told my wife I'm going to hit it. So I went. And I pull in the parking lot, and I come out. I go in the front door and meet a lady I would come to know as Mona. And I said I wanted to apply for a job or see what you guys had to offer. And she's like, well, fill out an application and we'll have someone get back to you. I'm like, cool. So she said, let me go get you one. So she disappears. In walks a guy named Lance Fernandez, who's Ken's GM at the time. And he's like, just 6'1", good looking dude, real fit, but like clearly has money and like charisma and self-confidence just at a level I was unfamiliar with at the time. But like people who grow up where I did and go through a lot of things I did, we recognize that in each other, right? This isn't a guy who grew up with money. It was very obvious. And I liked it. Like, he's a little harder, but he's well off, and he's very confident. And he's walks in, he looks at me, he's like, what's up? And he just nods up. And I look up at him, I'm like, what's up? He's like, what are you doing here? Oh, thought he was just saying hi. I said, somebody's getting me an application. And he said, what do you want to be? And I said, well, I'm a plumber. And he asked me, he was not afraid to hurt your feelings. That never went away, by the way. He said, is that all you want to be? And you say that to a plumber. Go ahead. I'm like, isn't that enough? And he's like, yeah, sure, man. If that's what you're trying to do, then that's fine. But have you ever thought about learning to sell, communicate at a high level? And then it just echoed what the previous guy had said. And I'm like, oh, here we go. I said, bro, I'm not trying to be like a used car salesman. I'm a plumber. And I'm at that point, I'm trying to like inch my way toward the door now, because I did have a feeling that if this guy wants to sell me, he's going to.
Yeah.
I might just be putty in his hands, very strong-willed and confident. And I'm the exact opposite of any of that. I was so uncomfortable. I'd never really left my neighborhood in Southwest Detroit. Like, this was very weird for me to be out in this area where there's people with money everywhere. And he said, I'll tell you what, give me 30 minutes in the conference room. Let's have a conversation. If you want to come work with me, great. If not, no big deal whatsoever. But either way, I'm going to give you it's like a $50 Visa gift card or something like that. And I was like, I could definitely use $50, right? I just filled the gas tank up and not worry for weeks. So I'm like, all right. And we went in there, and I don't remember exactly what he said to me, but I do remember it only taking about 12 minutes before I was signing paperwork. Even though I knew I had a third company to go see, I'm like, And I walked out feeling so excited about what was possible for me. And I hadn't felt that since I graduated from being an apprentice to running calls by myself. And then there's nothing really in plumbing to look forward to outside of that. Like, what's next really typically is maybe getting into management or getting out of a truck, or I don't know, but there aren't a whole lot of things like measurements to hit, right? As a young dude, it's like turn 18, cool, I'm a man. I don't know what that, I get to vote, I guess. 21, I get to use my real ID to drink now, finally. Yeah. But there's just not a whole lot of big milestones. But I was like stoked. But I do remember the mindset that he gave me was that I can learn to be a high level communicator and have conversations with people that I consider at this point in life better than me, just bigger than me, more accomplished than me, and better than me. And I can have these conversations in a way that not only can I grab and hold their attention, but that I will get what I want out of the transaction, essentially, right? Because one thing he made me sure of was that the only things that I would ever sell people on that team were things that I was positive were better for them and their families than the money they were going to spend. And that part stuck with me. Because he's like, let me ask you a question. If we put you on a performance pay commission structure, right? Last year, the year before, what percentage of things did you recommend to your clients that they actually went with versus what they didn't? And I go like, probably around 50. And he's just like, yeah, sure. I mean, I doubt that, but okay, great. Well, imagine you were getting X percentage of everything you did. And you never recommended anything extra last year. But instead of 50%, you closed 85. How much money would you have made? And I was like, like a lot more than 32,000. And it was just, this is what we're going to give you the opportunity to do. You're going to learn to communicate in a way that people take you more seriously. First thing you're going to do is pull your pants up and stop talking like you're straight out of a Boys from the Hood movie, right? Because I did have that issue when I got there. And then we'll train you and teach you the rest. And I was stoked. I went to the third company, and the third company offered me 30 an hour. And I was like, holy crap. That's twice last year without any overtime. And I'm going to work a lot of overtime. And I get back to the house, and my very pregnant wife, who at this time, man, she's sleeping on my mother-in-law's couch, 7 months pregnant. I'm sleeping on the top bunk above my brother-in-law, who stays up all night playing Halo 3 or whatever it was at that time. And I'm just all night, he's here, just these clickings. I'm like stressed out, right? But I'm so excited. I walk up to her, I go for the high five, we high five, and I'm like, I'm gonna kill it. Like 2005 is our year. And she's like, yeah, oh, you seem pumped. This is awesome. Like, what's the hourly? And I was like, oh, that's the best part. There isn't one. And it was like, just freaking out. Straight performance pay. If you don't sell, you don't eat. And then at that point there, we would all install our own work. There were no installers. So we were hustling hard, staying out late.
Let's talk about that for a second, though. Like, two things I want to know. What do you feel, or what do you know after becoming closer with this guy? Like, what do you feel that he saw in you at that time that made him push you harder and didn't just allow you to say, oh, I'm just a plumber, and let you walk out the door and, whatever, right?
That's a very good question. I've told this story on several podcasts, including my own, and I don't think anybody's asked the question that you just asked in the way that you asked it, which is to say, what are we looking for? Yeah. Right? Like, what characteristics can we be on the lookout for? So that's a great question. And I'll say not to toot my own horn, but not that I'm opposed to, but it is a lot of the things that I'm looking for in the conference room when I'm interviewing people, or when I decide who's going to be pushed harder than most people, which leads them to think they're being picked on. But so it is potential, right? It's if I'm having a conversation with you, do I want to continue having this conversation? If you are telling me a story where there's feeling involved, do I feel an emotion as you're telling me that story? Mm-hmm. Does your smile make me want to smile? Right. Yeah. These things are crucial. If I look you in the eyes and I'm speaking to you, are you maintaining that contact? And I'm not saying there aren't breaks back and forth, but
right.
Particularly when you finish a sentence or finish a story, do you rise up to the eye contact and are you able to hold it? These kind of competitive, like I want someone who's competitive, not somebody who has to win no matter who gets stepped on or any of that sociopath stuff, but somebody who wants to win, wants the team to win. These are the kind of things that now I know that he saw in me, even though, to be frank, I didn't see most of them in myself.
Right.
And the people that we in the home services are going to interview, we're going to come up against in a large majority of people that we interview where we see these kind of characteristics. They're not going to know they're there.
Yeah.
So eye contact, I hang out with Tommy Mello every other week and talk strategy and stuff. And for him, that's one of the biggest ones. Like if you're not big on eye contact and confidence already, he's probably not going to hire you. And at the level he's at and what he's trying to accomplish in the short term, this makes sense. Me, it's a little bit of a longer play, so I can see potential in you, even if all the boxes aren't checked yet. And I know at 80%, I can get it out of you and make you into something bigger and better, like someone did for me, than you probably even believe you're capable of, right?
Well, so you got a wife that's 7 months pregnant, you're sleeping on the in-laws' and brother-in-law's top bunk. You made $32,000 a year before taxes, and you meet this guy who saw something in you that you didn't even know was there, but apparently it made a huge impact on you. Did you know it in that moment? Because you went home and told your 7 month pregnant wife, it's going to be commission only, but you did go to that third place and you didn't have to. And they offered you $30 an hour, which was a lot of freaking money.
Yeah.
And you turned it down and you trusted this guy you just met to go commission only. And you've never sold commission only. And you've never been a quote unquote selling plumbing guy. So like, what did
and I didn't like them.
See?
Like
That's right. You were anti-against it.
I'm anti-selling. Yeah. I don't like these penny loafer guys trying to.
But what did you also see in him? Like it had to be this mutual thing that you were like, there's something here. I trust and believe in what he's saying, and I'm going to go do this, because you could have just taken the $30 an hour. Had to make it hard for you to even, if you wouldn't have went to that place and known that it was $30 an hour.
Yeah, even though the first one was enough for my wife to have said, like, you should have just taken that one. And I'm like, and we actually had this conversation here very recently about another business deal that we're doing and what I said to her was like, I can go path one with someone that I know and trust and make 25, and I'll make 50, 60,000. Or I can go path three and make 30, which is someone I don't really know, but I'm sure it's fine, and make probably 70, 80,000. Or I can go in the middle, path two, and completely bet on me, which is all it is. I'm rolling the dice and putting that money on myself, that I think I can do these things that need to be done. And Lance was such a no nonsense guy, and he pulled no punches. He had no problem calling me names for having my pants hanging off my backside and slang talk. And like, he he wouldn't say anything just to make you feel good. Like it wasn't happening. And the baby negatives that we call them in sales, he threw them in there. Like, I didn't understand that concept at the time, but I do now, where you never want to make something sound too good to be true. So if it's like, if you're talking up the tankless water heater for a family of 7 versus their 40-gallon power vent water heater where they're running out of hot water after 2 showers, well, you want to talk about all the great things about it, but sprinkle in the baby negatives and say, but it's not perfect. Hey, look, here's the deal. You can run every faucet in the house for 14 hours straight, and you'll have the same temperature water you did when you first turned them on. You'll never run out of hot water. However, it's still limited to the amount of volume or pressure that you have, right? It's not giving you more pressure. So if you run washing machine and dishwasher and try to take a shower, you'll have plenty of hot water, but that doesn't mean you'll have all the pressure you need, right? So he did that. He did that because he was well trained, but it had an effect on me. He's like, you seem very excited, and you should be, but let me caution you. You're not going to step in here and have it handed to you. You're way behind the 8 ball, right? You have to change your dialect even. That's like part of what you're going to need to do to be successful here, and to stand up straight and put your shoulders back and look people in the eye more and be more confident. And you're going to have to work so hard to hit the numbers you want to hit and make the money you want to make, that you got to determine whether it's going to be worth it, right? Because you want to be in there on weekends doing ride-alongs with people, and I did, man. And my wife wanted me at the townhouse with all of them, and this was a constant tug of war, but it was like, I just kept saying, just let me prove myself here.
How long did it take you to start making money? Like real money?
I mean, I think I made 65,000 year one. I know I doubled my previous year. And then like 85 the next year, and then into the 6 figures and never looked back. Yeah. So 2 years, it took 2 years to, and then the whole time, I in 2001, I trashed my knee and had 2 surgeries in 2001 and was on opiates, and we moved there. I was addicted to opiates, and then carried that baggage with me the entire time I worked there. And when I ended up leaving, in 2010, it was to fly to Pennsylvania to stay with my mom and stepdad to be able to get myself into the Teen Challenge Drug Rehabilitation Center in Rearsburg, Pennsylvania, which is where my stepdad had gone and kicked a 20-year crack addiction. Wow. But it's a 14-month live-in facility with no phone, no TV, no radio, no nothing, but like 13 church services a week. And you meet with your counselor multiple times a week. And it's just break you down to an infant and then build you back up into a man, for sure, but a man of God and someone with principles and integrity, and able to withstand the horrors of life without folding down into a bottle or a pill bottle or a needle or, whatever the. Yeah. Well, congratulations substitute on is. Thank you.
On your recovery. So 2000, you moved to Vegas 02?
04.
04. So 04 to 010 or 2010.
Maybe 2011. That timeline's a little foggy for me, as a lot.
So 6 or 7 years, you go from 6 or 7 years, you go from a white gangster. I see Eminem in my head, on 8 Mile, and so you go from that to this, just plumber, to learning how to actually do sales, how to communicate, how to make 6 figures. But you're doing all this addicted to pain pills.
The whole time. Yeah. Every minute of it. Yeah. And it was as much work and effort as Lance said. Like things he said were also like, you're going to have to spend money to make it. Like, you need so much help. So like, I think it was I think it was '04. It was like the end of the first year. I went with Lance to Tom Hopkins sales training boot camp in Scottsdale, here where I live now. So I had to go to my wife and convince her to let me take out a credit card for $3,200, including the flight, the stay at the Scottsdale Princess, the ticket to the boot camp, and all included. It was $3,200. It was literally 10% of our gross income the year before.
Wow.
And at this point, this model of me selling and making money has not been proved out yet. Let me tell you, like, we're not there. So in the beginning, I would have some good days and some good weeks, but they would be immediately followed by the other side of the roller coaster, right? Back down we go and back up. And long before crypto, I learned this saying that they say in crypto all the time, which is when in doubt, zoom out. Right? When you start doubting the progress you're making, back up a few steps and look at it as a whole. So instead of looking at the second week of October versus the first, where now I'm doing this, right? I'm heading down. Step out and look back at 2003 versus where we're at in 2005.
You're going to see an upward the whole time.
And you just see this, like, yeah, it's a roller coaster, but the constant theme is north. You're always heading north. Yeah. So it's super important to me. I tell this to my teams all the time. Like, don't get too bogged down in this week. I don't know anybody who doesn't have bad weeks, right? But when in doubt, take a couple steps back and see where you're really at. And one of my plumbers here recently was struggling earlier this year, probably like early summer. And I'm like, well, where are you at overall though, bro? Like, I've been with this team for 2 years now. And he's like, we're doing pretty good. I'm still beating last year. And last year was the first year in his 12, 15-year marriage that he made more than his wife. He never told me he was trying to do that, but he did it. I was like, sick. Are you going to do it again this year? He's like, absolutely. All right, then we're winning, baby. Let's go. All right, high five. So, yeah, I convinced her to let me take a credit card out for $3,200 in expenses that there's no there's investments, right? Where there's an actual return. And then there's this kind of thing where you're throwing money into me and hoping that on the flip side, I'm worth more in the marketplace and prove that out enough to get paid more. In that first year, it was tough.
Well, tell me about the event, though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That first, because I went multiple times, but that first one was tough because it was like, we get there in a cab from Sky Harbor Airport, and I look in the parking lot of the convention center we're going into, and it's like Porsches and BMWs and Mercedes, like Range Rovers, like parking lot to parking lot. And I'm like, bro, first off, like, what's with all these? And he said, oh yeah, it's almost all like realtors and insurance salespeople here. It's like, you might be the only plumber in here. And I was already, my confidence was like a 2, but now it's like -2 because it's all professionals with money. And I'm like, me, all knees and elbows, scrawny 24-year-old with, just not a ton of confidence. And we get in there, and sure enough, that's what it is. I don't remember what it was. 1,500, 2,000 people or something like that. And the first day is mostly training. And we have these booklets. And one of the things is rebuttals to every objection. And then another one is this list of fear words, cortisol producing words that you should never say in a sales or negotiation setting that produce cortisol in the other person, even though you and they never know it happens. But it actually triggers the release of cortisol, the stress.
What are some of those?
Contract, buy, sign. So sign this contract is a really big red flag for people. Like, my dad always told me, before you sign anything or before you sign a contract, like, let your lawyer see it, right? So we just say, we just say things like endorse the paperwork, right? Okay, the agreement, that kind of thing. And I don't know what there is, like 30, 35 of them or something now, and probably more added all the time. I actually got an electrician I trained in Pennsylvania. He's selling to a couple ladies who live together. And one of the ladies asks him, she's like the decision maker, and she's just like, I'm up against these two options right here. So in your opinion, like this was your house, which one of these two? And he's like, well, I would definitely say that the middle one is going to trump the bigger one in your specific circumstance. And here's why. He starts talking. And the lady who was not being part of the ordeal comes running in because he said Trump. This was like 2019, right? This is like way back edge. And she kicks him out and he loses the sale and he never gets back to that house. And he's like, they're literally picking the option right there. And it said game on. And she said that he did it on purpose because they had a I'm with her sign out front. I don't know. I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, bro, it doesn't really matter why you did it. In selling, the client's perspective or perception is our reality. Yeah. Right. So yeah, there's probably a good reason not to use that word in that home. Right. So we have all these words that you just don't say. And I'm at this event, and for day 2, he says, here's your homework. Master as many of these rebuttals as you can. We're going to have a game tomorrow. So Lance and I stayed up. We just got pads of sticky notes from the front desk, and we were writing objection on one wall over my bed, and then the rebuttal on the wall over his bed on another sticky note. And we're just practicing all night. And it's probably till like 2-3 in the morning. And we freaking mastered it, right? And we were doing this already before we went because we do a lot of training at a Ken Goodrich shop. So we end up at the end of the day, we're role playing, and the winner, like the group, it's like groups of 10 or something, and the group picks the best person who role played from their group. And then they go role play with the group of like winners next, right? And it gets all the way up to 4 people, 2 on each side. And whoever wins those, the winner of each one is going up onto the stage. And both of them, whether they win or lose, are going to get a pick, shaking Tom Hopkins' hand with the award that they win for getting up there. And I'm like, close, man. I'm like, the next one, if I win this one, I'm going up to the main 4, right? And the guy goes before me, and as he's wrapping up, I'm just like I hear myself saying, I got this. Like this guy, it was not great. It was like almost nobody actually did the homework, right? They were just trying to piece it together in their head, and it was so clear. And I knew these things front to back. So he finishes, and I just said to myself, like, I'm just going to let him take it. Like, he worked real hard. And I sandbagged and I lost, but I could have won. So now mind you, I spent 10% of my gross income from the year before on a credit card to be there. And in these box trucks, we got these mirrors that are completely useless because there's nothing to look back at. But like the whole year, I'm just looking at myself in that mirror. I'm like, you're pathetic. Like you're a coward.
For that moment.
Yeah, because you spent $3,200 of next year's money that we don't even have yet to go to that thing, and then chickened out at the last moment when I could have gotten up on that stage. So,
well, now you've had 20 years, right? Roughly almost 20 years to reflect on that moment. Mm-hmm. What do you think it was? Right? Because you weren't winning a free trip. You weren't getting your money back. It was to shake his hand and get a plaque, right? Like the
but it was
accolades
like,
there weren't going to change your life. But what do you think it was? What does that moment mean so much to you in the next couple months or in the year that you were looking at yourself in the mirror?
I mean, if not for the second part of the story, it probably wouldn't mean anything to me.
Okay.
Right? But because I didn't let myself off the hook the rest of the year, like that whole year until the next event, I was angry at myself. And I spent that whole time learning those scripts even better. And then he had a new book come out around that time. And I got it and I read it and I took notes the whole time reading it and like broke it down and then got in there the next year and I won.
Let me tell you a story real quick. You're a workout dude. You know Phil Heath, right?
Yeah.
You ever watched the Phil Heath documentary?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's on Prime. You ought to watch it. It's called The Gift. And there's a part in there that I got chills right now because it's resonating with what you're saying. The last year that Jay Cutler won the Olympia, it could have easily been Phil's first, and Phil got second. But he's talking about it and they're showing it on the screen. And he goes, watch me. He goes, when they announce my name as second, you see this relief. He goes, I'm relieved that I didn't win. I didn't want it. Like I was scared of what was going to happen. But then that ate him up. And then he was like, I just needed that one more year. I wasn't ready then, but then he went, obviously won the next 7 after. So,
yeah. And I don't understand the concept of like, there was going to be no adverse consequences of me winning, but there was some, colossal loser in me that refused. There was nothing I could do to make myself.
Do you know what? Maybe you were
do it well.
Obviously, I believe that everything happens for a reason, right? But I just think that was your first year, right? And you weren't making real money yet. Like you needed to look in that mirror for the next year and say that shit to yourself because then it was like it all clicked. And
I don't even know if I would have gone a second year if I had won, but
there you go.
I couldn't. I told my wife the whole time I was going the next year, and even if I to stock away, $5 tips every day to get there, like I'm going next year. It's like it lit a fire under me, but it also showed me that the decision of whether I'm going to win or lose is mine, right? Yeah. And I don't even know, had that not happened, maybe I don't even go to rehab, right? Maybe I die in opiate addiction like so many of my friends have. But I didn't, I fought and won, and fought and lost and fought and won and fought and lost some more and fought and won. But yeah, so that's part of that is part of the Matthew principle, right? Jesus said in Matthew, to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from everyone who does not have, even what little he has is going to be taken away. And that concept was considered so important that it was repeated 3 times in the New Testament in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Twice in Matthew and then Mark and Luke. And it's not just theology or just economics. That, as I've come to know, is actual life. That's it's summed up. Because if you think about the alarm clock, we get up super early. I'm up at 3:45. Don't hit a snooze button. Like hit the gym. Opens at 4:30. I want to see the lady come and unlock the door, right? Well, that one win from 4:30 to 5:30 sets the tone for an entire day. So I've proven to myself already that my willpower and discipline are going to beat my weak mind and pathetic body into submission before most people are even awake. And now watch what happens. Because we have that one win, more wins get added. We probably eat better that day. We attack our calls, service calls, sales calls, training with our techs, calling upset clients, negotiating with our vendor partners, whatever it is, far more energy and mental power, right? With the clarity of that pump, if you're smart enough to lift weights. But we speak to clients and teams with more confidence because the blood's flowing and our body feels just so much more alive. And that single act compounds over the course of an entire day. Now look how much different a week looks, and then a month, and then a year, and then a decade, and all of a sudden, like you said, 20 years later, right? And as Brian Tracy said, and every one of us knows from experience, doesn't matter how old we are now, the time is going to pass anyway. Yeah. Right? Whether we get 8.5 hours of sleep instead of 7 and a good workout in the morning or not, the time is passing anyway. And that's the Matthew Principle in action. And the Matthew Principle, it's actually titled that by economists, not theologians. They call that the Matthew Principle. It's like people who have momentum, like an object in motion, right? Yeah. They just cosmically, naturally seem to get more momentum. And disciplined people get more disciplined. And people with stewardship gain more and more to steward. But if you don't have it, if I hit snooze, if I skip the little things in the beginning of the day, if I coast and put myself in cruise control, even the little that I woke up with is getting stripped away. I'm sluggish at work. So now the calls that were easy yesterday are tough today. And the techs who are really motivated by our training yesterday, they're not so motivated today. And they're kind of like, they're pushing back a little bit more than usual. Mood tanks, opportunities decrease. Your things that people would normally give you because you're the energy person and you're a person juggling things with gratitude and you're working really hard and getting a lot done, but treating people well while you're doing it. All of a sudden that goes down because you're in a kind of a crappy mood because you're not feeling accomplished today and you don't have your workout in and you woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And to me, the wrong side of the bed is when I felt like getting up. Any time before that is the right side of the bed. Yeah. Right. Now, because of your attitude and you don't even know it, everything's crappier and you're blaming all the outside circumstances. But people are offering you less because they don't really want to deal with you as much as they did yesterday. And this is part of that compounding snowball effect that economists call the compounding advantage. Faith calls it stewardship. Economists call it the Matthew Principle. But the good news is we don't need much to start with to start the wins. The tiniest win is enough to start the process. One early wake up. And it doesn't have to be a full-on weight session. Like, I understand how unhealthy the men and women in the home services can get from firsthand knowledge of being. I was horribly unhealthy when I went to rehab, and I learned to work out in rehab at 31, 32 years old. And I understand that not everybody can just go run 4 miles this morning. Not that I would, but, or get 300 pounds on the bench press of the squat rack, but you don't have to. So if you're at the complete starting point, like literal base level of fitness, like horribly out of shape, it's okay today, but it's not okay tomorrow. It could be nothing more than getting up a half an hour earlier than you normally do and going for a 20-minute walk. It's crappy weather in most of the country, not where I'm at so much, but it's going to be 75 and sunny today on Black Friday. But in most of the country, it's crap weather right now. I get it. Bundle up, right? Bundle up.
And or do body weight stuff, right?
Yeah.
Body weight squats.
Like, depending on your body, I guess. Like, There was a time a body weight squat for me might have meant a new ACL. Like, you gotta be careful. But there's stuff you can do, even if it's just a walk. And then you graduate toward walking faster, and then you maybe find some steps to go up and down, and then eventually move into a gym membership, right? But it all either starts or stops with what we're going to do tomorrow morning. And I promise you, if you start the journey of self-discipline and fitness, you don't have to worry about how am I going to get my diet in check. Like right now, start something and watch and see if magical cosmic forces don't come to your aid, people into your life you never imagined, and start helping you, because this is what happens. This is why wins compound so much, because people are magnetically attracted to winners, even at the smallest level. So one faithful step, whatever that might be, because when you have, more will be given. And soon you'll be the one with abundance in these little things, and they'll become big things. So find some little wins, fall in love with the work required to get those little wins, crack a book, crack a notepad, swap out the news and the music and the stand-up comedy and the stupid morning shows throughout the day that are literal protein-free chewing gum for your ears. They do nothing for you, right? And get into audiobooks and get into podcasts like the Home Service Hustle and Waste No Day and these kind of shows, and watch even those things start to turn your life. Now all of a sudden, is what I noticed. I was religious about it. Brian Tracy, Tom Hopkins, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn. This was all I listened to in my truck for years around that time. And these questions would come up in life, in parenting, on sales calls, and I would have the answer. Not because I went out and had the experience that was necessary, but because instead of listening to Metallica, I was listening to Zig Ziglar. And dang it, if he didn't just talk about that on the book I was listening to yesterday, right? And pop comes the answer, and all of a sudden, here's another win. And then that just layers onto another one and another one. Jim Rohn had
let me ask you a question. Was rehab a big part of you getting this growth mindset?
Yeah, I would say in terms of the physical part, I had none of it yet. I was a growth guy already because of Lance and going to like either the first or second year I went to Tom Hopkins boot camp. Brian Tracy was there, was a guest speaker for a half an hour.
Okay.
And I had already read The Psychology of Selling, so I was like already mesmerized by the guy. But being around those kind of guys, and like, you know, I was at the time I was pretty skinny. I couldn't put on weight, and I didn't eat a whole lot because I'm in a truck. So I didn't eat breakfast, almost never ate lunch, usually one meal a day. And I was fit enough to do what I needed to do. So I never took my fitness seriously. But in rehab, 80% of the people in that program are court mandated there. So a judge would say, you have 2 years left on your sentence. You can either complete the 2 years or you can go through this program. And typically this is a Christian judge, and they'll put them into this Christian program and say, if you can go through this and spend the 14 months and get your graduation certificate, you'll be on parole afterwards. Like we'll end your sentence. Because this is how big this program is. I mean, it's an agent of change for sure.
Yeah.
So 80% of the guys in there were in prison. So one thing I was able to take from them big time is there were some jacked freaks in there, man. I mean, there were some Phil Heath looking dudes coming out of a couple years in prison and like going in there and like not eating. It's crazy because I'm like not eating any better than me or more protein, but they're just yoked. So I learned how to lift the way that I wanted to, which is that kind of prison lift set, which is like, I like drop offs and peel offs. And like, maybe we're starting with 275 and we're taking a 5-pound plate off each side down to 135, and just like repping out all you can. Now I got a bad shoulder from it and a bad ankle. My knee sucks. It's like really heavy CrossFit almost. But if I'm having my most fun in the gym, that's what I'm doing. And I have somebody doing that kind of thing with me. But yeah, so I got into the physical fitness part in there. And then once I had that and the spiritual component, because I never paid that any mind either. So yeah, I'd say.
So how does this affect your training, like when you're working with someone? Because like you started at a place, skinny little dude with his pants hanging down and speaking thuggery, to now where you are today, and you've got the mindset that you do and the work ethic that you do, and the things that you do every day, those stackings of wins, and how that completely changes your day, week, month, and in quarterly, yearly goals. How do you take that into working? Like, I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes. And if I'm coaching someone and they're a quitter, it's like, it'd be so hard for me to want to work with them. Right. Because it's like, you almost want to shake them to death going like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, I know this works because I've done it. I've been at rock bottom and I've been hooked on drugs and I didn't know how to sell shit. And I hated people that sold. And like, now I'm to this place where I am today. Like, why won't you get your shit straight? So like, how do you handle that in your coaching world? Yeah.
And I am as aggressive as you just put it. And then more so at times. Yeah. So there is a feeling of disgust that techs tell me they can see on my face.
Okay.
When they're telling me why.
That's good.
Their situation is different.
Yeah.
These clients are different. It's always like a roll of the eyes, and it's difficult for me to tolerate. But I try to be gracious with, like, even though they're in the same situation right now as I was in, say, 2012, 11, right? They weren't in my situation in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
So we're not the same. And as Dr. Jordan Peterson talks a lot about, it's a very unfair to, one, compare myself to Tommy Mello, right? In terms of how unsuccessful I am. Also very unfair for me to compare people behind me, quote unquote, and how unsuccessful they are as compared to me right now, because nobody else on earth has had all of my advantages or disadvantages. Nobody. So the only fair comparison for Brian Burton is Brian Burton yesterday.
Yeah.
And the only fair comparison for you listening is yourself yesterday, or what I like even more is what I expect out of myself tomorrow. So I give the grace try to give the grace to the men and women I train. Like, you're coming to work for me today. You're just going to understand that there's never going to be a point in time where you give me what we both know is an excuse, and I accept that like it's factual and there's nothing that can be done about it. Right? You just got to know that coming in. But I'm also not going to degrade you and belittle you for the most part and like try to break you. I'm not about that. But there's going to be levels of accountability that are pretty few and far between, right? But the other thing I'm going to have is all the resources you could possibly need to get better, right? All the contacts, all the history myself, and haven't been through what I've been through, and everything you would possibly need to be successful, you're going to have the day I show up, right? But you're going to have a lot of work to do. And another thing I stole from Brian Tracy's, I always give him credit. But he said, when you get into leadership, every subordinate you just adopted feels like it's their job to put all of their responsibilities on your plate. But your job as a leader is to make sure they understand how to get it done and then push it right back on their plate. And that's something I found to be so true, especially when you get into upper levels of leadership and you have middle management between you and the field staff. There's a lot of that. I don't know how, so here you do it, right? Versus, and then you just give it back. Well, here's how, or here's someone who can help you figure out how. I believe you. I believe in you. You got this. Now go get it done, right? So high levels of accountability, but also low levels of grace and humility, and trying to appreciate where someone actually comes from and where they're at now, and how big of a journey that leap even is for that person. And if you can try to walk in and remain in that gratitude for what they've already accomplished, it helps you see them more as a person and not just a number, and be a little more present for them. Right.
So let's talk about your management style, your leadership style. I mean, like, you obviously, again, right, you go from high school dropout to going through those first couple years of sales training class that you had to put the bill up yourself, and you've had a ton of growth spiritually, mentally, physically. But like, how do you take all of your history from your personal story, and like, how do you let that motivate, or how do you push that into, let's say, the team at Benjamin Franklin Plumbing today?
Yeah. Yeah, I do that to an extent. So having my calendar be the same every day, every week, every month, every year helps a lot. So Monday is Extreme Makeover Presentation Edition. We just call it Extreme Makeover Monday. That's me training on presentation. I know that I'm going to use first person stories every Monday. And now we just ended our second year together, right? But I still need to be bringing that every Monday, bringing the heat, bringing very good motivating meetings. But I went through a lot of meetings where Ken Goodrich would bring just industry trainers in back in the day. And I remember, for the most part, not everybody, but for the most part, they would leave and we'd be all hyped, like, yeah, baby, get me to a call. Can't wait, right? And I go to knock on the door, and I step back for a second before Ring cameras, and I think to myself, what tool do I have in my communication arsenal to sell this first call today that I didn't have yesterday before that trainer came in? And like 80% of the time, the answer was nothing. I'm just hype. And I decided early, when I'm training people, and I always knew I would, like I always wanted to, that I would not be that. There would not be a morning meeting that I gave where the team didn't have a tool that they didn't have yesterday, right? So anytime I give a training, it's going to be motivational. There's going to be a little fluff, like a little rah-rah, and like, let's kill it. Personal stories and stuff like that, but also quotes from people smarter than me. I love to do that because I need the credibility, right? Someone who lived a couple 100 years ago. And then making sure that there's a strategy rolled out that if they start using this today, they're going to make more money. So I know I have, give or take, 48, 50 of those a year, right?
Okay.
And I might write concepts for my entire first quarter of Mondays, like in the next few weeks here. And then I'll fill them in my phone's notepad as I have time. So Tuesday is PTSD Tuesday. That's presentation, training, simulation day. You can guess what that is, why it's called PTSD. It's all role play. So all we do, I'll come in and talk for 5 minutes, get everybody pumped up. And then we have different games that we play for role play. Like I have 17 objections on the whiteboard, right? At all times, 1 through 17. And let's say there's 15 people in the training room today. I'll say, Siri, give me a number between 1 and 15. And she'll say 4. And I'll point to the guy in the 4th chair and say, come on up front. Give me another number. It'll be 8. Guy in the 8th seat, come on up. Give me a number between 1 and 17. And she'll pick the objection. And then you just say, go. And they take turns overcoming the objection. And we all give feedback. And once we feel like they both nail it, have a seat. But we have a bell, like a ding bell. It's like very high pitched and annoying. If you say any of the fear words, if you say, if you put your hands behind you or in your pocket, the bell goes off in the middle of your role play and you have to back up and do it over without doing those things. And it's very nerve wracking, man. We have, so Wednesday's Wiser Wednesday. That's winning insights, skills, and expertise for results. And that is a guest speaker every Wednesday. So big part of how I'm able to effectively train, I think these days, is because I don't make it all rely on me, because you are going to get sick of hearing me at some point. Right. So,
but that's every week, y'all go through that same cadence.
Yeah. Thursday is TED Talks. That's technical education with Daryl, our operations manager, who's does technical plumbing training. And then Friday is the Role Play Olympics. And Role Play Olympics is we get guest judges to come in and the guys just take turns role playing. And in the back are the guest judges with Olympic scorecards. And they judge at the end, and whoever wins will get like a Chick-fil-A gift card, right? But those judges will be like Jonathan Wisman, the author of The Sales Boss, has done it. Andy Elliott trainers have done it. Many of our technicians have had their moms come in, wives come in. My wife came in, kids have come in and judged. And when you get this, like my wife or Jack, one of our plumbers, Jack's mom, you get a perspective of a client.
Yeah.
Especially when you're role playing and a wife or a mom goes, ooh, that just felt kind of creepy. You're like, whoa, like whatever it is that he just did has to go. Like we can't ever do that again. Because if you're giving her the willies, you're giving your client the willies, but they won't tell you
right
in the home. But these ladies have to turn a scorecard, right? So this is our week every week.
Is that an hour a day? How long?
Yeah. So it's scheduled from 7 to 7:45. We're lucky if we get out of there by 8:05 most days, because we just get engaged and keep going.
So how long have you been at this current role now?
Just hit the 2-year mark.
All right. And what has that impact been in those 2 years?
Well, I think the top revenue year ever done by a plumber before was like 600,000. We'll have 3 guys do $1.5 million this year.
Wow.
No sewers. Like we don't have a sewer department. This is all regular plumbing calls, and probably about half our calls are maintenance calls. So it's just water treatment, tankless water heater upgrades, upgrading toilets and faucets and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Congrats, Sarah.
Thank you.
I mean, obviously I don't have to ask you, but like talk in terms of how impactful that routine is. You know,
yeah.
I mean, for the people out there listening, right?
Well, I
can't afford to hire Brian in my business. It's like, well, you might be able to hire Brian. You could pick Brian's brain. You could get some from Brian. Yeah. And you could implement this in-house yourself, even if you had to.
Yeah, cadence is super important. And it sounds like it's all important for the team, but let me tell you about my schedule, right? Chaos. It's chaos. There's so many things going on for Waste No Day, blue collar closer, I never turn down somebody who reaches out to me online and asks for help. I'm always giving on social, and like, I feel like I have a debt to pay back to my mentors, that I'll never be able, like, I can't go run up on Ken Goodrich with a gift card and make his day. Like, the guy's, I'll never have Ken Goodrich money.
Right.
So, but the way that I feel like I can pay it back is like, one, whenever I have the opportunity, I'm hyping those guys up for what they did for me. And two, I've hit a certain level of success that most in the industry haven't hit in various ways. And I can reach back anytime and pull somebody forward, or if it's vertical, I can reach out the window I'm at now and drop a rope ladder down for the next guy coming up, right? And that's how I try to pay it back. So my schedule is very, very busy and very chaotic. But if I know that I need a meeting written for Monday, every Monday this year, and that we need a concept to role play on Tuesday, and I need a guest for Wiser Wednesday for the whole year, that's the easiest part of my week, right? Because I know it all year and I can just plan for it. But I would say make sure that two things are always there. One, you have a concept for the meeting, so they're going to get something out of it. And two, you are somewhat inspirational. Not because you're the owner and nobody will tell you otherwise. But I don't know, man. Maybe like play a video of yourself training and ask yourself for real, would I motivate me? And if the answer is no, then get somebody else to do it.
Right.
And it's typically not your service manager. That's the brain of the technical side of the organization.
Yeah.
So figure out who needs to lead that meeting, so it's making guys want to get out of their seat and go hit the calls, right? And then lead with gratitude more than anything else. Always, like, your frustrations are going to be seeping out of your pores accidentally while you're training, and every time you mention something that's kind of a negative of like, we need to clean this up, everyone in there is going to come to you that afternoon and say, was that about me? Right? It just is what it is. I don't do a Waste No Day episode where someone asks if I was talking directly about them. My response is usually, if you have to wonder, it's probably yes. Probably. Yeah. Probably. But oftentimes the reality is I'm yelling at younger Brian. I'm screaming at myself for the time I've wasted.
I love it. Let me ask you this one question. You came from a place where you thought selling was used car salesman bullshit, right? So you obviously know that that's not true today. And when you're providing value and helping people, like, it's not selling, it's you're doing your duty, right? I mean, as a plumber, an electrician, I mean, whatever it is that you're hopefully. What do you say? What is your message, both now to the people listening and then, but to the people that you coach? Like, what is that message when they have that same mindset, right? That they're like, I mean, I wouldn't have that in my house, so that's their thought process of why.
Yeah, that is one, man, where I'm like, it's a tough one to, like, I don't want to be the guy who's like, doesn't matter if you want it in your house, get out and sell it. That's the job. Cause I'm like, I don't need you to, I don't want him selling it. That's a 1-star review. Almost guaranteed, because if he gets someone to go with it and he doesn't truly believe in it, he's going to have to muscle them into it. And nobody likes to have their arm twisted, but there are enough people in our society that will let their arm be twisted, and to avoid confrontation, they're going to do something they don't want to.
Yeah.
And then later, when the tech's gone, here comes the Attorney General report and the Better Business Bureau negative review and the Google review and whatever. So for me, to be clear, probably not what everybody wants to hear, but if I have a plumbing tech who's 100% anti-tankless water heater, I call them idiots. I don't know what the deal is, but it happens. if you're completely, I got a family of 6 and you try to tell me that a tankless water heater isn't in my best interest, like what's wrong? There's not something wrong with the tankless. There's something wrong with you. Right. So if that's the case though, cause it does happen, I just say, cool, sell tank style water heaters, but check out all these water quality products that we have, right? Hey, maybe you're anti UV light in the ductwork. That's not your thing. All right. What about these electronic filters, right? What about a HEPA? What about all these other things? So whatever it is, don't try to force a technician to sell something that he or she doesn't believe in, because you're asking for trouble.
You know, I had, I want to say it was Kale. I know I mentioned him before we got on here. I think it was Kale I had on the podcast a couple weeks ago. And I feel like it was him that told me everything that he wants his guys to sell and install, he puts it in their house.
Yeah, love that.
And he said there's a lot of times that they just don't, they think they don't like it or they wouldn't have it in their own house. It's just because they wouldn't pay for it or they wouldn't go out and typically just say, yeah, let me raise my hand. And I want that. But once they do see the benefits and everything else, then it's much easier for them to sell. Do you think do you think that is
100%? It would be great. I understand. I'm talking to a lot of teams that don't have the resources to go get a Navy and put it all in their plumbers' houses, or even like a whole home surge protector and put it all in all the electricians' homes. But there is one other way. I had a guy named Chris who worked with me several years ago. And he's like, I'll put in water softeners all day, but I'm not doing that carbon filtration crap. That's all hocus pocus and it's junk. It doesn't do anything. And I was like, okay. So, it's hard not to get your tail feathers ruffled a little bit when someone says something like that. Cause you're like, well, okay. So 1, you're saying I'm a crook. And 2, you're saying everything that I stand here and say in front of the team about him is lies.
Yeah.
But let's leave that part alone for a minute.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, I got a homework assignment for you. Take the weekend and spend the weekend researching chlorine and chlorine's effects on human beings, even through showering in it in tap water. And then look at disinfectant byproducts, meaning chlorine killed it or sterilized it, but it still stays in the water, right? And find out about that. And then just write me a report on it, what you feel about it. And he came in Monday, no report. I knew I was going to get a report from a plumber. I mean, I was pipe treating, and he said, bro, I had no idea. I'm going to sell the crap out of these things. And he became our that company's number one water treatment sales guy ever. I mean, he just went crazy with them. So the other flip side of the coin is, because my thing to him was, I was like, in your report, tell me why we shouldn't carry them. If it's convincing enough, we'll stop selling.
Right.
But I knew that's not what he's going to come back with.
I mean, look, I can relate. Like, I feel like I go through that in the digital marketing world, right? Like, I just went through it last week. I only do sales calls if it's a referral from a current client or something. Like, I'll take that call personally. Otherwise, like, my sales team handles everything. But I got on this call. I was actually in Baltimore on a business trip, and this company needed to do a call, and it was referral from a former client who he sold out his business, but now he's involved with another company. He goes, hey, they're getting screwed on marketing. Need you to talk to him. I said, sure, let's do it. And I've got this guy vouching saying, hey, he helped us grow our business and I sold and all this. But the owner gets on and he's like, I'm like, well, I just like to know a little bit more about you and about the business and what the goals are. Right. And, and he's like, in the next 5 minutes, he told me, like, and he used a lot of the vulgar language. It was like, I hate all of you. I hate all of you. You all suck. And it was like, the more he said it, the happier I got inside. Cause I said, cause in the next hour and a half, like, all this guy needs is to be communicated to, because he doesn't know. He has experienced the same thing over and over, but it's because of lack of transparency and communication with former companies that's led him to be in this place. And I think, and by the time we got off that call, and he was actually in a damn tree stand, I didn't realize it. Like, he was in this big ass house. He kept looking behind him. I was like, dude, like, is he tweaking? Like, why is he so like paranoid? But he's like, I got 12 bucks sitting behind me right now. I'm on a satellite call to do this call. But by the end of it, he's like, let's do this. Right. He goes, I've had no one ever broken down and communicated and showed me what you just showed me. But I think that same thing happens. Like, how do you expect someone to go sell something that they don't believe in? Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of times when the air condition or plumbing world or electrical world, they're plumbers and they're electricians. And we talk about communication and stuff, but like, they also have to be a believer in the product. And I think one of those ways, I loved what I'm pretty sure it was Kale, but I love that he's like, I put the shit in the guy's house. I pay for it.
Throwing them in is going to be huge, especially when you get the type of products where if you threaten to take them out afterwards, the wife would call in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And now all of a sudden he's got to sell it because he's told to from home base. Right?
I mean, but think about that. Like, when you made that comment, apparently it hadn't been told to you once. It's probably been told several times that I don't like tankless water heaters. I wouldn't want to have one in my house. What could ever get someone led to that place?
Well, there's been enough problems with Rinnai over the years that they can be such a technical warranty nightmare that kind of thing would get someone to that point.
Okay.
As well as the cost. They're significantly more expensive just for the unit and to install as a tank style water heater. And you know how these
I get that. Right?
Heroes are these guys that are like, their only job in life is to save a client money, like even at the expense of their own family.
Yeah. But that's all things, when you hear those things, you're like, we got some training to do. Right. I mean,
well, I walk into another room and let my eyes roll so they don't do it accidentally. And then I come back out ready to go. And we train our way through it. And when when I'm doing a boot camp, right, I got your team for 2 days or an on-site. If I go train your team, I only have 2 days. So these things need to happen fast, right? Same with a podcast. If I'm on here, waste no day, it's an hour.
Right.
But if it's my own team and if it's your team listening, you can play the slow game and it's much more effective where bit by bit by bit, you're selling everyone on the concept or the equipment or whatever it is. And you just crack the faucet and leak the info in there slowly, like I did with Chris. Chris, there's nothing I was going to say that was going to convince Chris otherwise. He was so sure carbon water filtration was a scam.
Yeah.
That it's like Tom Hopkins always said, if I say it, the client will doubt it. But if they say it, it's true.
Yeah.
So getting them to do their own research is pretty key. And then getting them to have equipment in their home and fall in love with it. And more importantly, their spouse to fall in love with it it's going to do the trick every time.
Yeah. Well, two things. One, we're getting towards the end of the show. I go through some rapid fire questions, get to know Brian a little better. But I also want to let you know, I came to a conclusion after watching you and hearing you on here. And I don't know if one's ever told you this, but let me tell you who you look like and what I think happened. If Jocko and John Gruden had a baby, I think it's Brian Burton is who the baby came out to be.
I have heard this before.
I'm telling you, sprinkle some blonde hair up there. I can see John Gruden, and then I can see the Jocko side as well. So, all right. So
not making Jocko and Gruden money yet, but one day.
We're gonna go through some rapid fire questions, shoot from the hip, and we ready to go?
Ready.
All right. Childhood hero.
Childhood hero. That's a tough one.
It could be, some people name superheroes, right?
I didn't really have that so much. There wasn't much to have for heroes, but I would say that my uncle Tone, one of the ones who helped me get into plumbing. I remember, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I was in like 6th, 7th, 8th grade, something like that. Cameron Kerr was out at our shop training the other day, and he asked the question, raise your hand if when you were a kid, you dreamed about being a plumber. And I was the only one who raised my hand in our entire shop. I remember being in a Detroit public school in like 7th or 8th grade. And it was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And each person had to say something, right? And it was a lot of astronauts and a lot of teacher, which I always thought was funny. So I'm like, most of our teachers here talk about their landlord, and like a lot of them are carpooling because one of them doesn't have a car. I'm like, you want to do that?
Yeah.
They don't make any money, right? And then it got to me and I said plumber. And then a lot of the kids right around me laughed. And then the teacher even laughed. And she said, do you know how nasty plumbing is, and that you have to like be in people's sewage? And I was like, I guess I didn't really know that part. And the kids all laughed at that. And I'm just like, man, whatever. Like, why you picking on me? But the teacher and I had a conversation in front of everybody, and I was like, but I'll say this, like nobody in the class knew our dads, me included, raised by a single mom in Detroit with a twin brother. But my uncle's a plumber. Actually, 3 of my uncles are plumbers. All of them owned homes where they lived with their wives and kids, and they each had their own vehicle. And none of them lived in the city of Detroit anymore, right? And I was saying, like, I'm not saying I want to be a plumber because I love pipes, right? I don't.
You want a better life.
I know that those guys do that for a living, and they have families that live in a big house they own and like their own vehicles and stuff. And nobody I knew had any of that, including everyone in the class,
right? Including
Miss Young, the teacher, who's like, you know, renting an apartment or whatever. And not that that's the end of the world, but at that time for me, that was going to be the difference of whether I won or lost in life. Spoiler alert. Won that battle.
Yeah. I'm sure not a lot of the astronauts made it to be astronauts either, right? So
yeah, I don't think last I checked, none of them were in space. Although, yeah,
they might be in space in their mind. But I was asked that question in kindergarten, and my response was, "I want to be a man." So everybody else wanted to be doctors and lawyers.
You were ahead of your time.
I just wanted to be a man, you know. And my wife reminds me often that, you know, you accomplished what you wanted to be.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So a famous person that you would invite to have dinner with, and they can be dead or alive.
Oh man, you know what? I got several. I mean, just the idea that I could have a conversation with the wit and intelligence of someone like Abraham Lincoln would be a game changer. But of all the guys that I've followed for these 2 decades, of like Brian Tracy and Tom Hopkins and Jocko Willink and Chris Voss, and all these guys have been on Waste No Day. I've gotten to interview all of them, except Jim Rohn.
Okay.
And man, would I like to get him. So if that conversation is going to include a microphone and a camera, it's going to be Jim Rohn.
I love it. Well, that'd be a wealth of knowledge there at that dinner table.
Oh, man. Full notepad, buddy.
What's the most adventurous thing you've ever done?
Probably, because I'm in the mindset of it right now, but like leaving my family, my wife, who wasn't working because we had 2 kids at the time, for her to start waitressing and move back in with her parents, and me to fly across the country to check into a rehab that I knew was 14 months long was pretty adventurous.
$14 months. Yeah, I mean that had to test y'all.
Yeah,
because you had a couple kids at the time.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
The couple of years leading up to it were certainly a test.
Yeah.
Because it was do or die at that point.
Best decision you ever made?
I'd say Mrs. Burton is the best decision I ever made. Well, you know, I talk a lot about my top 3 things that I did in my 40s. Yes, rehab was up there with Mrs. Burton.
Okay.
Top 3 things I did in my 40s were, number 1 was quit drinking because I ended up relapsing on alcohol. Number 2, getting a CPAP. And number 3, getting on testosterone replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my top 3 in my 40s. But yeah,
Nice.
best decision. I think your spouse is probably going to be the biggest decision you ever make. I firmly believe that you're either marrying an anchor or a bigger sail.
Yeah, I think it's always one of the most impactful decisions. If you find the right person, which you and I have, then it's the best decision, right? I mean, so that's that tricky part. There's a lot of people that don't, I think, necessarily marry the right person for them. That's not there to support them and be there for their growth and all that.
My wife was that person.
Yeah.
Oh, I've made the wrong decision,
right?
At least for multiple periods of the 24 years we've been together.
If you had to make a sudden career change, what would it be?
Like if I was going to go do something different than all the things I'm currently doing.
You woke up tomorrow and the things you do now, you're walking away from, you're going to go do something else.
Yeah. I don't know, logistically speaking, what this would look like, probably a tall order, but ever since I got into selling and kind of mastered this, I thought that I would really love a courtroom setting. Defense attorney, prosecuting attorney.
I did a podcast Friday, I think, with what's his name? Anthony. He's the owner of Trust One. You know who I'm talking about? You know him?
I don't think so.
He owns Trust One. It's up in Massachusetts. And he used to be a bodybuilder. Young kid though, and they went 0 to 10 million pretty quick. He's pretty aggressive. But when I asked him that same question, he goes, attorney. Yeah. I was like, is that what you always wanted to be? He's like, no, it's just what I've gone through over the years. I just feel like I could be a badass attorney.
I never thought so, but I think that I could dazzle a jury and I could win a judge over. And I really do love the law. Like I love reading about it and reading when you get into like, I'm so ignorant of, I don't even know not subtext, but you like read this law and then you read all the fine print under it, subtext, whatever. I don't know what words I'm looking for, and you get into and then you read like how this one came to be. And it was due to another court case in 1912. And you're like, what? And then you go read that court case. And I just, get into that stuff. And I'm like, I think that including the research piece, and then being in front of the judge and the jury, I would really enjoy it. My co-host asked me this recently, and I gave the same answer on the show. But I think I would have to be a defense attorney because even if I got someone off who ended up being guilty, I could live with that. But I don't think I could live with someone doing 8 years because I was such a good attorney, even though they were innocent and I didn't know it.
Yeah.
So defense attorney.
Okay. Beach or mountains?
Beach, 100%. Not even close. Yeah.
Okay. You're from Detroit. I didn't know. Like college. I know you.
No. I'm not into the cold anymore. I like the mountains. Andrew Dobbins, buddy of mine who owns Intelligent Design in Tucson, got a huge house in the mountains here in Pine Top, Arizona. And we go snowboarding up there and sledding with them, and it's a good time. But man, even while I'm there, I'm like, San Diego's like 2.5 hours, beach.
All right. And the last one is, what is Brian's belief on aliens?
Normally I'm hair trigger and just say like, there's something out there. Like But I was watching a short or something with my wife the other day where the guy was showing all these reasons he believes it's like demonic presence, even what we consider extraterrestrial. So
Yeah.
I definitely believe in a spirit world, whether it's aliens from other planets or spiritual beings. I believe there's more to this than just you and me.
Yeah, I agree. And I was watching something just last night, matter of fact, on the Giants. It was talking about they were like a form of life that
The Nephilim.
that were having like inappropriate sex in the Garden of Eden. And they made this new species that were these giant people, right? But they were done out of not the place God wanted them to be. And, so it's like, and they're saying that they're the fallen angels, right? Like they're the
Nephilim, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like Genesis 6 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's creep. That's another thing. Just like the law, I had nothing but time in those 14 months. I got 2 15-minute phone calls a week with Amelia. And outside of that, I was just reading. And I studied the Bible, read through it twice, and then got all these Greek and Hebrew lexicons because the Old Testament's written in Hebrew, New Testament's in Greek. And I wanted to read like what word for word translations were and answer these questions, and getting into that stuff. It was a little creepy. Also getting into Revelations was like was a trip, and trying to understand eschatology and end times and stuff. But yeah, it's a good time. And there's like an endless fountain of knowledge and entertaining study in there that, yeah, I would say back to that first question, the biggest adventure was probably rehab, because a lot of sounds like it was in there.
A very impactful moment of your life. So
it was miserable. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's not supposed to be fun, right? It's not. Yeah, it's not Disney World.
Always felt like more of a punishment than reward, but I'd earned it, right?
Well, Brian, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and this has been an awesome conversation. And talk about give everybody a little information how they can find you.
Yeah, Waste No Day podcast is the easiest. Bluecollarcloser.com. If you like what I talked about, you want to check out an actual 5-step process for anyone in the home services to sell. And we have 17 different industries in the group, as it is, from 4 different countries, 330-ish members. There's an actual 5-step selling process that I train at boot camps that's in the classroom in there. And yeah, all of us just all day, every day, all night, posting, hyping each other up, and getting better at communicating. Also, can shoot me an email, service@wastenoday.net.
Sweet. Dude, I appreciate it. Would love to have you back on in the future to get some updates on you. And I wish you nothing but the best and a happy new year, and we'll talk to you soon.
You too, brother. Hey, for everybody listening, if you got anything out of this episode or any episode of the Home Service Hustle podcast, I can't stress enough how big of a deal it is for getting bigger guests on the show. That drop an Apple review, and like, not just where you hit the 5-star, but say what's up. Like, tell them what you thought of an episode, or you think of the show, or how you appreciate him hopping on here every week to burn an hour and a half with some drug addict from Detroit, and just give a little bit of gratitude. It's a big deal. It's a big deal for a show like this. So
I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much, dude.
Good to see you, bro.
Thank you.
See ya.